Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I am your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, and today I want to talk about build orders for the new Rings of Power Kings of Men. Okay, so this is my second season playing this game mode. This is technically my seventh season in the game, second time playing this game mode, and I want to talk about a little bit. It's quite different. I have a video already on build orders for all the other game modes that are all similar, but there is quite a few little changes, all right, that I'll break them down real quick, very fast, because you probably know if you've already played the game. But if you're newer, that's the point of this video, right, to this game. Let's break down the buildings. So first, let's look at the buildings. So this is very similar, all right? There's one big change. So if you watch my other video, this is very similar. So really, the big thing everyone should be doing is there's the little tiny quest thing that's right here behind my screen. It's the little tiny scroll, and it gives you your quests, right? And it leads you through what you need to build. Highly recommend you always be following this and trying to keep up with this as you're taking tiles, right? As you're building your armies, as you're taking tiles, you want to be following this, right? Setup. And of course, because it gives you resources when you're done with these, and it gives you more land. It removes the limit of how much land tiles you can have, right? So, but now let's talk about a few things. So we have to talk about conscripting versus hiring, right, in this game mode. So they changed one thing, right, where there's actually a lot more hiring. You get to hire 4 people at once down here now, and you can have 4 conscriptors, which is kind of cool thing, and also kind of not. It just depends on what you like. So what they've done is, if you've played some of the other game modes that are mixed, usually you build these buildings out here for evil units, right? If you're on the good side, or if you're on the evil side, you build them for good units, right? If it's a mixed non-RP server, right? And that's role-playing, right? The role-playing servers, you can only have good on good and evil on evil characters and units, right? Everyone knows that. Side note. But now you have to go into your tiles and you can build any of the units that aren't like the generic Gondorian units, right? Or the generic orc units. I mean, like Easterling units. Here, I'll show you. Let's go into the buildings. Let's go into here. So you have the Numenorian quarters, right? You all have this, because every person there's not good or evil in the Rings Power game mode. You are just a castle. That's it. You're not in a faction. You're not evil or good, right? So we have the evil quarters, and we have the good quarters. Basically, Numenorians and Easterlings, right? That's what you get. Those are the quarters. Everyone gets access to one kind of tier, or two kinds of tier 4 units, right? That aren't wild, neutral units. You get chariots, the evil side, or swan knights, right? For the good side. And those are the 2 things you can get. That's it with tier 4s. That's one thing in this game that's kind of sad. You can't really get any of the factional tier 4 units besides those 2, but still, I understand why they didn't do it. So basically, you really want to build into either the evil side, if you're going evil, with commanders more, until later in the game. You really want to focus on one or the other, okay? This is the build order, okay? Let's talk about build order now. And I play more good heroes, and I like to start with the good side, so I'm going to the good side. Again, when you have the quest to build the things, don't forget that it does say one or the other. So I'm building the Numenorian quarters to level 7. I could be building the Easterling quarters to level 7, though I'm going to upgrade it, because it still gives me the resources. If you notice, the resources got squished between the 2 quarters, right? Because normally, in the other game modes, you have 4 quarters, right? And one would be a Gondorian. Let's say you're on the good side, right? You'd have Gondorian, and then maybe, Elf, Elven, Dwarven, and Rohan. Or it moves around depending on what faction you are, correct? Opposite for the evil side, correct? They all also have that changing and those four different factional groups. But now you're like, okay, well, I can have Easterling evil men, or I could have Numenorian Gondor men. What if I want Rohirrim? What if I want, alchemists? What if I want dwarves? What if I want warg riders, right? Or raiders, as they're called in this game. You go to your tiles, you go to build, and as you can see here, now you have light cavalry, bow range, hunter range, horseback archers, wardens, there's all your elven archers, grunts, there's your scout lair, which is your riders. Again, you can click it and it'll show you what it, and once you build it, and we'll explain that in a moment. So you got to choose a couple that you want. Again, I like to use my dwarves, and I like my breaker lair, which is the alchemist lair for my witch king. So once you have that, you will actually upgrade these buildings just like you would if you were making the opposite faction, right? In the other faction game mode. If you're good and you're making evil unit camp, if you're in a mixed server, Same exact kind of thing, but now you're doing it for some of your other units that aren't human units, right? So that's kind of the idea, or your Rohan units, which is how they've split this game mode into it. So now that you know that little 5 minutes of information if you're a new player, hopefully you can follow that, and I explained that well. Now you need to think about what is your build order. Well, again, follow the quest thing. That's really important, obviously. But what are the things you really should aim for, okay, early in the game? You're trying your best to build up your commander's strength, take as many tiles as you can for resources. Don't go for, I have a video on tile taking, don't go for tiles that are really, really more powerful unless you know your character can beat the tile 5 levels lower commander. But, so we need to go into buildings again. You want to aim for, in this main building hall, everything's pretty much the same. Of course, you want to get your conscripting up as soon as possible, and your storage and your barracks and all of your things, and your fellowship hall, all those kind of things, right? Main hall. But again, your main quest is going to be telling you, upgrade your conscription hall, upgrade your barracks, upgrade your main hall. What it won't tell you, I think it says it once. You obviously need to get your market up as soon as you can. I'm going to upgrade this very soon when I have this open slot. The two big ones, like I've told, the military academy, very, very important. Every commander has more ability command, right, to have more units. This is a big one you need to always aim for, right? You need to try to balance your resources that you're not neglecting this, right? Again, one of the quests will force you to build like one of the level 2 or 3 of both of these, but these two are very, very important, okay? The military assembly. Again, this will be when your main hall is level 5. It says right here on the left. But this one is also extremely important because if you are someone who's not just using Gondorian, Numenorian units or Easterling units, right, or pirates, which are the ones you can get in your normal building, it's over on this side, right, these ones right here, right? If you're not that person, you're using dwarves or elves or you're using Urukai, you need to be doing the military ambassador because you need to be able to level it up, right? It also increases your hiring queue. Even though that also happens in your conscripting, right? It gives a hiring queue as well, and normal conscripting queue. But you need to have this because you need to be able to upgrade your building. So right now, I can upgrade my field barracks to level 4, okay? What does that mean? What does that mean for a new player? All right, for this game mode. Again, if you're someone that's newer, if you go into building, all right, let's see, here's one I already have. And you see right here, it says right now I'm level 3, okay? Mine is level 3, so I can technically upgrade this again. What does it do? Well, the first 2 levels gives you the tier 1 unit. The next 2 levels gives you the tier 2 unit, right? And then the ones on give you the last one, right? Gives you the tier 3, which is what you're aiming for, right? So you do need to be remembering to also upgrade these, or even if you're upgrading a military academy and your embassy and all your other buildings, you will be like, why are my dwarves still all tier 1? You have to be actually upgrading this building out here, right? And yes, if you break it down and you move and you build it again, it will remember what level your thing was, okay? And it will build, instead of being 2 hours or whatever, it'll build in 15 minutes, right? Basically like resetting up camp. You know that if you played the other game modes and you were using the opposite side units, right? So that is really, really important to think about though, right? So you want to be upgrading these as well. So you're kind of doing a lot more juggling in Rings of Power, but there is a bonus to this game mode compared to the other ones. With your barracks, now you have a lot more hiring things. So normally, let's say all of your units are conscripted. You're on the good side. I'm going to use it as an example, right? Because I use it the most. You have all your units, right? You're conscripting, and you want to conscript some dwarves, some Numenorians, some horsemen, some this, that. You kind of have to choose because you're only going to have 2 or 3 conscripts early in the game, right? And you're like, oh man, that's kind of annoying. But now, since it's hiring, guess what? If I'm conscripting, I can conscript my human units, right? Horses, some soldiers, Gondor soldiers, rangers, that kind of thing. Then I can also be hiring. I have 2 more slots now. I could be hiring goats, and I can be hiring also dwarven warriors. So I could be hiring technically 5 things at once in this game mode. Now, again, will your resources get gobbled up a lot faster? Yes. And your question is, do they cost gold, the hiring camps? No, not the ones that would normally not cost gold. The ones that normally do cost gold, like a camp that you would find, right, in the wild and neutral camp, those still cost gold to hire, of course, like eagles and all those. But now you see why this is a benefit, though. See, because I can actually be conscripting lots of groups of people at once. Again, I'm only going to do 4 groups, but now, as you can see, I have 2 conscripting groups of horses and soldiers, and I have 2 hiring groups of goat riders and shield bearers. And again, I'm very early in the game. I've only been playing the game for a week, right? So I can have a lot more variety, and I can be pumping in a lot more soldiers at once as long as I have the resources, right? Because normally I'd only be able to conscripting like 2 at a time, right? No matter what the time limit is. But now, since they make it where dwarves aren't in conscripting, they're in hiring, or elves or whatever, you can be hiring 4 groups of people at once. So it makes it a lot more fun that you're not like running out of troops as much, as long as you balance your resources well as you are collecting your tiles and not losing all your troops. It's important to use commanders that don't lose troops, okay? Wait, I have videos on that, on the playlist on that too. But I'll have some updated ones as well for you. So anyway, what do you guys think? Hopefully that helped you out. So again, build orders and knowing what to build first and how to build in this game mode. Little review for you real quick is make sure when you're building that in this game mode, follow the quest thing. That's the big thing right there, right? Make sure you're doing your conscripting, following those, so you're progressing through the game and getting more tile opens. That's the big one. Choose really if you're doing good or bad early. Later in the game, yes, go for it. Again, I would recommend still throwing some upgrades into your early Easterling quarters or Numenorian, depending on the opposite, because the quarters do give you gold levies and your money, and resources, so it's kind of important, besides your regular resource buildings that give materials, right? So I would recommend doing one or the other, though, until later in the game. Then once you're more end game, you can start finishing the upgrades, right? Once this is completely done, or vice versa, right? And then you're moving into these. And make sure you are focusing on making sure you have the market earlier. I always recommend that. You need to have this as soon as you really have the upgrade, because then if you have one of a lot of resource, you can more easily convert resources. I always highly recommend too, if you're converting resources, convert just what you need early. Don't just convert like, oh, I'm just gonna convert a bunch when this is level 1 and it's only giving you a 40% ratio, right? Because it's real bad. You lose a lot of resources that way. So just take what you need, boop, but definitely use it, right? If you're trying to hurry and build things. And then military embassy and military academy must be focused, you guys. Military academy as soon as you can, even though it's very expensive, because, and again, remember, you need to balance this with having troops, with hiring. So you need those buildings to be building. Try to make sure your building queue is always being used. But at the same time, don't be building things where now you can't hire any troops for the next 12 hours and you're out of troops and you can't take any new tiles or do anything while you're waiting for those buildings. That will be inefficient, right? That's what's important about the build order. You need to be balancing that with your hiring and your conscripting, right? Which are kind of like double in this game mode now. You got kind of both of them, right? For the same kind of units. So, which I've already talked about a minute ago. But military embed, this is really important if you're hiring a lot more units. Now again, if you're using only Numenorian units, right? You're only using those human units. You're someone that just really uses just these, right? Or vice versa, just these evil units. You don't need any hiring camps early in the game. I mean, in theory, you could just completely ignore this, right? You can just completely ignore this entirely until late game, and then you can start upgrading it once everything else is upgraded, and then build some hiring things if you want. I would recommend not doing that, because it's probably important to at least have 1 or 2 hiring camps. So again, you could do what I was telling you about having more troops coming in all the time to use. So, and more variety for different, setups. But then of course, military academy, that's the big one, because it increases how much your commanders can hold in command of units, which means they can take higher level tiles, right? Even as they're leveling, and also getting more room for troops as they gain levels, right? So that's the stuff you need to think about. I really hope that helped you guys out. I did my best to say that in a very clear manner for a newer player. If you are confused, please leave a comment. I will answer it for you and try to clarify something if you were confused. And thank you to my Patreons for their support. Subscribe button's there. Next episode will be right up there in the top left. And you guys have a great day. And LOTR Tales over there, where I do voiceovers in Lord of the Rings Online, which is some of my main content on this channel. And we love Lord of the Rings and Tolkien here. So you guys have a great day, Middle Earth. I'll see you all in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. See ya.